The sky above Coruscant's Imperial Palace split open without warning. No hyperspace signature, no ship breach. Just a wound in reality itself. Hemorrhaging crimson energy that made even the Force-sensitive Inquisitors stationed below recoil in discomfort. Through that impossible tier, a figure fell. Cape spreading like broken wings, armor black as the void between stars. He plummeted through the endless cityscape, past floating traffic lanes and neon-bathed platforms, toward the industrial depths where even Imperial surveillance grew thin. Bruce Wayne hit a Durasteel rooftop with enough force to crater the metal. His suit's impact absorption systems screamed warnings across his HUD before flickering and dying. Pain lanced through his ribs despite the armor. He rolled to his feet on instinct, Cowl's sensors rebooting, and immediately assessed his situation with the cold efficiency that had kept him alive in Gotham's darkest corners. This wasn't Gotham. The city stretched infinitely in every direction, towers climbing into clouds, speeders flowing like rivers of light through the sky. But the architecture was wrong. Too angular, too pristine. The technology felt simultaneously advanced and ancient. His suit's analysis systems couldn't identify a single material composition. His communication systems found no recognizable satellites, no Wayne Enterprises network, no Justice League emergency frequencies. "Alfred, come in," he said into the Cowl's comm. Static, Oracle, anyone. Nothing but the howl of alien wind through impossible spires. A sound behind him. Bruce spun, batarang already in hand, to see 3 figures landing on the rooftop with impossible grace. They wore dark armor with crimson accents, and each carried a weapon that made his tactical mind pause, cylinders that ignited into blades of pure red energy, humming with barely contained power. Lightsabers. He'd seen enough science fiction to recognize them, but seeing one in reality rewrote his understanding of possible physics. "Identify yourself," the lead figure commanded, a woman whose voice carried unnatural authority. Through the Force, she reached out to sense his presence and found nothing. No connection, no midichlorians, just an empty space where consciousness should shine. It unnerved her more than any dark side presence. "You are not in our records. Your armor is unknown. Are you a Jedi hiding your presence?" Bruce said nothing. He analyzed their stances, weapons, the way they moved with preternatural awareness. Enhanced, possibly precognitive. His standard tactics wouldn't work here. But fear was universal. "I asked you a question," the Inquisitor said, taking a step forward. The other 2 flanked wide, coordinated hunters. "The Empire does not tolerate..." Bruce threw the batarang. Not at them, at the rooftop's edge support beam. The explosive charge detonated, and a 3-ton atmospheric processor tore free, plummeting toward the crowded skyway below. The Inquisitors reacted instantly, using their power to halt the debris in mid-air, focusing entirely on saving the civilians below. In that moment of distraction, Batman vanished into the shadows of a ventilation shaft. The lead Inquisitor, third sister, snarled in frustration. She'd felt no malice from him. No killing intent, yet he'd created a crisis with surgical precision. "Contact Lord Vader," she commanded. "Tell him we have an anomaly, something that doesn't belong to this galaxy." 50 levels below, Bruce crouched in darkness, finally allowing himself to feel the impact of his situation. The rift. It had appeared in the Batcave, just as he'd been analyzing a sample of energy from a Justice League dark case. Some kind of dimensional breach. He'd been pulled through, and now he was... where? When? Another Earth? Another universe entirely? His cowl's emergency power cell gave him maybe 12 hours of functionality. After that, he'd be operating blind in a galaxy he didn't understand, hunted by warriors with impossible powers. He needed information. He needed resources. He needed a plan. Above him, through hundreds of feet of durasteel and technology, Palpatine sat in his meditation chamber and smiled. He'd felt the rift tear open, had sensed the arrival of something unprecedented. Not force-sensitive, yet radiating a darkness born of pure, mortal will. Fascinating. The Emperor reached out through the Force, not to touch the newcomer, that was impossible, but to touch the minds of those who hunted him. "Bring him to me alive," Palpatine's voice whispered through the Inquisitor's thoughts. This one has potential." Bruce Wayne, now truly alone in a galaxy far, far away, did what he always did when the odds were impossible. He began to plan. Somewhere in this city world, there were answers. Somewhere there was a way home. And if he had to become something darker than the Dark Knight to survive long enough to find it, then that was a price he'd learned long ago to pay. The hunt had begun, and neither the Sith nor Batman yet realized who was truly the predator. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. May the Force be with you. The Undercity of Coruscant was a graveyard of forgotten dreams, where sunlight never reached and the Empire's gaze grew mercifully dim. Bruce had descended 40 levels through maintenance shafts and abandoned transit tubes, each level stripping away another layer of Imperial order until he reached a place that reminded him of Crime Alley. Desperate, dangerous, and perfect for disappearing. He'd found refuge in a derelict warehouse district that once serviced the Republic's shipping lanes. Now it housed squatters, spice dealers, and the kind of people who knew better than to ask questions about a man in black armor. His cowl's power had finally died 3 hours ago, leaving him relying on his natural senses and decades of training. Surprisingly, that felt more comfortable. Technology had failed him. His mind wouldn't. Bruce had spent those hours watching, listening, learning. The language, basic they called it, was close enough to English that his linguist training bridged the gaps. The currency was credits. The power structure was authoritarian, militaristic, and efficient in a way that reminded him of fascist regimes from Earth's history. And the weapons these Inquisitors carried, lightsabers powered by crystals, controlled by something the locals called the Force, a mystical energy field that connected all living things. Users could move objects with thought, sense intentions, even influence minds. It explained the preternatural awareness he'd encountered on that rooftop. It also meant every combat doctrine he developed was obsolete. You couldn't sneak up on someone who could feel your presence. You couldn't ambush someone who could see seconds into the future, unless you were invisible to their sixth sense entirely. "You're not from around here," a voice said in the darkness. Bruce didn't turn, having heard the Twi'lek woman approach 2 minutes ago despite her careful steps. She was good. Former military, possibly intelligence. Definitely someone who'd learned to move quietly for survival rather than sport. "Neither are you," Bruce replied, noting her core world accent. Refugee from the upper levels, probably displaced by Imperial restructuring. Fair enough. She stepped into the dim light of a failing glow rod, revealing purple skin marked with old scars and eyes that had seen too much. Word in the Undercity is that something fell from the sky today. Something that embarrassed the Inquisitors badly enough that they're tearing through the levels looking for it. That wouldn't be you, would it? Bruce remained silent, calculating. She'd approached alone but carried a blaster pistol and moved like she knew how to use it. More importantly, she'd found him when the Empire's finest couldn't. That meant local knowledge, connections, and resources he desperately needed. Relax, stranger. If I wanted to turn you in, I'd have brought friends. She pulled out a data pad, its screen showing grainy security footage of his rooftop encounter. That was impressive. Tactically sound, minimal casualties. And you made Third Sister look like an academy washout. I'm Zara. I run an information network down here for people who prefer the Empire doesn't know their business. What do you want? To understand what you are. Force users sense each other like magnets. But you? She gestured at him with genuine curiosity. You're a blank spot. The Inquisitors can't track you through the Force because you don't exist in it. That's valuable. Possibly the most valuable thing I've seen in years. Bruce considered his options. He needed information about this galaxy, its power structures, and most critically, the technology behind that dimensional rift. This woman could provide access to all three, but trust was a luxury he couldn't afford, not when he didn't understand the rules of this universe. I need technical schematics, he said finally. Energy manipulation technology, dimensional physics, anything related to spatial anomalies. Zara's eyes widened slightly. You want to go home? Smart. Most people would try to carve out territory down here, but you're thinking bigger. She studied him for a long moment. That kind of information is locked in Imperial databases or academic institutions, both heavily guarded. You'd need... The Undercity shook. Not an earthquake, a concussive force that rattled durasteel beams and sent debris raining from the ceiling. Through the warehouse's broken windows, Bruce saw Imperial patrol ships descending in formation, their searchlights cutting through the darkness like burning spears. But ahead of them came something that made even Zara's hardened expression falter. A single figure descending slowly through the air without any visible support. Black armor far more imposing than Bruce's. A cape that moved like liquid shadow, and a helmet that transformed human features into an emotionless mask of dark purpose. Even without Force sensitivity, Bruce felt the weight of this being's presence. The way the air seemed to constrict, the way survival instincts screamed to run. Vader, Zara whispered, already backing toward the exit. The Emperor's enforcer. If he's here personally, then... I know you can hear me. A voice resonated through the warehouse, mechanized yet carrying absolute authority. Darth Vader stood amid the rubble 30 meters away, his presence dominating the space like gravity itself. You who do not exist in the Force, my master wishes to speak with you. Bruce's hand moved to his utility belt. 3 smoke pellets left. 2 explosive batarangs. 1 EMP charge that might not even work on this galaxy's technology. Against a man who could apparently fly and wielded a blade of plasma, those odds were laughable. But Batman had faced gods and won. He'd stood against Superman. He'd survived the Joker's worst. I'm not interested in conversations, Bruce replied, his voice dropping into the graveled tone that had broken hardened criminals. He triggered the smoke pellets, filling the warehouse with dense cover, and moved. But Vader didn't track him with eyes. Through the Force, he felt the displacement of air, the pressure of footsteps on Dura steel, the electromagnetic signature of the stranger's equipment. A gesture of his hand and the smoke cleared, blown away by an invisible wind. Another gesture and Bruce's explosive batarangs, mid-flight, froze in the air before being crushed into scrap. Impressive technology, crude compared to Imperial standards, but creative. Vader's lightsaber ignited with a snap hiss that echoed through the warehouse. You fight like an assassin, move like a predator, yet you spared those civilians when you could have killed them. Curious. Bruce emerged from behind a support beam, accepting that stealth was impossible. You don't want to do this. Your confidence is admirable, also irrelevant. Vader raised his hand, and Bruce felt an invisible pressure close around his throat, not physical strangulation, but something far more terrifying. The Force reaching past armor and flesh to crush his windpipe directly. The Emperor has extended an invitation. You may accept with dignity, or I will drag your unconscious body before him. Choose. Darkness crept into Bruce's vision as his oxygen depleted. He had perhaps 8 seconds before unconsciousness, 12 before brain damage. His hand scrambled across his belt, finding the EMP charge, his last desperate gamble. He triggered it, and electrical energy pulsed through the warehouse in a wave that killed every light, every power cell, every electronic device. Except the lightsaber. Except Vader's suit. Except the Force itself. The pressure on Bruce's throat vanished as Vader laughed, a sound like grinding metal and broken dreams. Clever, but the Force requires no technology, detective. It is life itself. Detective. The word struck Bruce harder than any physical blow. Vader knew, somehow, impossibly, he knew what Bruce was. Yes, Vader said, sensing the realization. My master sees much. He sees your potential. He sees the darkness you carry like armor. The Sith Lord deactivated his lightsaber, the gesture somehow more threatening than keeping it lit. You have faced evil in your world and used fear as your weapon. Here, we can teach you to transform that fear into power absolute. Join us and discover what the dark side truly offers those strong enough to embrace it. Bruce's mind raced through scenarios, each ending in capture or death. He was outmatched, outmaneuvered, and completely out of options. But there was one play left, the most dangerous gamble of his career. He could say yes. Get close to the Emperor, learn their weaknesses. And when the moment came, strike from within. It was exactly what Ra's al Ghul would do, what the League of Shadows had trained him for. What every part of his tactical mind screamed was the logical choice. Take me to your Emperor, Bruce said, the words tasting like ash and necessity. Vader nodded slowly, somehow satisfied. Welcome to the Empire, Lord Batman. The Imperial Palace rose from Coruscant's surface, like a monument to absolute power. Its architecture designed to make visitors feel insignificant beneath the weight of empire. Bruce was escorted through corridors of polished obsidian and crimson banners, past formations of crimson-robed royal guards whose stillness suggested either perfect discipline or something far more unnatural. His utility belt had been confiscated, his armor scanned by technology that couldn't identify its composition, and yet they hadn't removed the cowl. A test, perhaps, or arrogance. Vader walked 3 steps ahead, his mechanical breathing the only sound in the vast emptiness. They'd spoken nothing during the journey from the Undercity, but Bruce had used the silence to observe. The way personnel cleared hallways before Vader's arrival. The fear that radiated from every officer and servant. This wasn't respect, it was terror institutionalized. The Empire ruled through intimidation, and Vader was its avatar. Bruce understood avatars of fear. He'd been one for 20 years. They entered a chamber that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. In its center, seated upon a throne that somehow diminished everything around it, waited Emperor Palpatine. The holographic images Bruce had glimpsed in Undercity broadcasts hadn't prepared him for the reality. A figure wrapped in dark robes, skin pale as death, eyes that burned with yellow corruption. But it was the smile that made Bruce's instincts scream danger. That smile knew secrets that should never be known. "Welcome, Bruce Wayne," Palpatine said, his voice like silk over razor wire. Or should I say, Batman. The Dark Knight of Gotham City, orphaned at age 8, trained across continents by masters of combat and deception. A vigilante who has broken more bones than the Inquisitorius combined, yet maintains a single, inviolable rule: you do not kill. Bruce's expression didn't change behind the cowl, but internally he recalculated everything. Palpatine couldn't possibly know these details. There were no records, no databases, no way to access information from another universe. Unless the Force reveals many things to those patient enough to listen, the Emperor continued, rising from his throne with surprising grace. When you tore through the barrier between realities, you left ripples in the cosmic fabric. I have spent decades learning to read such ripples, to see echoes of what lies beyond our galaxy. Your world fascinates me, Mr. Wayne. A planet without the Force, yet filled with beings of extraordinary power. Gods, you call them, and you, a mere mortal, have stood against these gods and survived. What do you want? Bruce kept his voice level, clinical. Every word Palpatine spoke was calculated, designed to unbalance him. The Emperor was a manipulator, possibly the most skilled Bruce had ever encountered. That made him extraordinarily dangerous. The same thing you want: understanding. Palpatine circled Bruce slowly, hands clasped behind his back like a lecturer addressing a promising student. You seek a way home. I seek knowledge of the multiverse that spawned you. We both desire power, though you cloak yours in nobility while I embrace it openly. Tell me, does the distinction truly matter when Gotham's criminals lie broken at your feet? I don't torture. I don't execute. I bring them to justice. Justice. Palpatine tasted the word like spoiled wine. What a quaint limitation. You have faced a clown who murdered your second Robin, Jason Todd, yes? I see the memory burning in your mind, like a wound that never heals. You found him, beat him senseless, and then stopped. Delivered him to authorities who could not hold him. How many died because of your mercy? How many families destroyed because you refused to do what was necessary? Bruce's hands clenched. The cowl's sensors might be dead, but his detective's mind was screaming. Palpatine wasn't just reading surface thoughts. He was diving deeper, pulling up memories that Bruce had buried under years of discipline and control. The Emperor wielded psychological warfare like a scalpel, cutting precisely where it would cause maximum damage. I see Lord Vader brought you the opportunity of alliance, Palpatine continued, returning to his throne. I offer something far more valuable: knowledge, training, power to ensure that when you return to your world, and you will return, I promise you this, you will never again be constrained by weakness masquerading as virtue. You want to train me in this force? Bruce stated. Impossible, I'm afraid. You possess no midi-chlorians, no connection to the cosmic energy that binds our galaxy. You are, as my inquisitors discovered, invisible to our greatest weapon. Palpatine's smile widened. Which makes you the perfect assassin. Jedi and Sith alike rely on the Force to sense danger, to predict attacks, to shield themselves from harm. Against you, they are blind. Against you, they are merely mortal. The game became clear. Palpatine wanted a weapon that could strike where Force users felt safest. An invisible blade aimed at potential rivals, surviving Jedi, or perhaps even Vader himself. Bruce would be unleashed against the Emperor's enemies, and in return, receive access to Imperial resources and research into dimensional physics. It was a deal that would make him complicit in atrocity. It was also the only path to getting home. "I'm listening," Bruce said. Palpatine gestured, and a holoprojection materialized between them. Schematics of a device that twisted space-time into impossible geometries. The Sith have long studied the nature of reality. We possess temples, holocrons, ancient knowledge that predates the Republic. Somewhere in that accumulated wisdom lies the key to your interdimensional rift. Help me eliminate obstacles to peace and order, and I will grant you access to every secret the Sith have gathered across millennia. Obstacles, Bruce repeated. You mean people. I mean threats to galactic stability, insurgents, traitors, Force users who refuse to accept the new order and instead cling to the failed philosophy of the Jedi. The Emperor leaned forward. Tell me, Batman, when criminals threatened innocents in your city, did you not hunt them through the night? Did you not use fear as your weapon? Did you not break laws to serve a higher justice? I wasn't serving a dictator. No. You served your own judgment, your own moral code, accountable to no one. How is that different from what I offer? The only distinction is scale. Palpatine waved his hand dismissively. But these are philosophical discussions for another time. First, you require proof that I can deliver what I promise. Lord Vader, show our guest to the archives. Vader, who had remained silent throughout the exchange, inclined his head. Yes, my master. As Bruce turned to follow, Palpatine's voice stopped him. One more thing, Mr. Wayne. I know you plan to betray me. You accepted this meeting intending to learn our weaknesses, to strike from within when the moment presents itself. It's what you did with Ra's al Ghul's League of Shadows. What you've done with every organization that tried to recruit you. Bruce froze, hand instinctively reaching for a utility belt that was no longer there. I tell you this because your intentions do not concern me, the Emperor continued, his yellow eyes burning with dark amusement. You are welcome to try. The Sith are forged through conflict and betrayal. If you prove strong enough to destroy me, then you will have earned the right to rule. If not, Palpatine's smile became predatory. Then you will have learned why the dark side is inevitable. Either way, I win. The chamber's doors sealed behind them with the finality of a tomb closing. As Vader led Bruce through the palace depths toward whatever waited in the archives, the mechanical breathing seemed to carry a warning. The Emperor enjoys testing potential apprentices, Vader said without turning. Most break within days. Those who don't often wish they had. He sees your strength, Detective. But strength is not the same as power. You will learn the difference. Bruce said nothing. But in the darkness behind his cowl, his mind was already dissecting every word, every gesture, every tactical detail of the palace layout they'd traversed. Palpatine had made a critical error in his arrogance. He'd given Batman time. Time to learn, time to plan, time to find the weakness in this empire of fear. The Emperor believed the dark side was inevitable. Bruce Wayne was going to prove him wrong, even if he had to embrace that darkness to do it. The Sith archives existed beneath the Imperial Palace in chambers that had been ancient when the Republic was young. Vader led Bruce through corridors lined with holocrons, geometric artifacts that pulsed with inner light, each containing the preserved consciousness of long-dead Sith lords. Their whispers seemed to echo in the sterile air. Promises of power and warnings of doom intertwined until they became indistinguishable. The Jedi kept their knowledge in temples, accessible to all who serve the light, Vader explained, his voice reverberating off walls carved with symbols Bruce couldn't decipher. The Sith hoard ours. Power is not given freely. It is taken, earned through suffering and sacrifice. You will find that philosophy familiar. Bruce studied the chamber with tactical precision. No visible guards, but sensor arrays covered every angle. The holocrons themselves likely served as alarms, sensitive to forced disturbances. Breaking in here would be impossible for any conventional thief. But Bruce had never been conventional. Vader stopped before a sealed vault door marked with warnings in a dozen languages. What lies beyond this threshold has driven lesser minds to madness. Sith knowledge is not mere information. It carries the essence of the dark side, the accumulated malice of thousands of years. Even I do not venture here without preparation. Then why bring me? Because the Emperor commands it, and because you cannot be touched by what lives in these texts. Vader entered a complex code, and the vault opened with a hydraulic hiss that sounded like an inhale of poisoned breath. Your immunity to the Force is both weakness and shield. You cannot wield its power, but neither can it corrupt you. An interesting paradox. The vault interior stretched far beyond what the palace's dimensions should allow. Either advanced technology or something more esoteric warping space itself. Rows of datapads, ancient texts, and crystalline storage devices lined walls that seemed to recede into infinite darkness. At the chamber's center stood a holocron larger than the others, its crimson glow pulsing like a heartbeat. The holocron of Darth Vader, Vader said with something approaching reverence. One of the ancient Sith lords, who sought to transcend mortality through mastery of essence, transfer, and dimensional manipulation. His research into alternate realities cost him his sanity, but his discoveries remain instructive. Bruce approached the holocron carefully, his detective's mind cataloging everything. The device's geometric structure suggested sophisticated data compression. The pulsing light pattern indicated active processing. This wasn't just storage. It was artificial intelligence preserving its creator's consciousness. Technology and mysticism merged into something that shouldn't be possible by any physics Bruce understood. How do I access it? Normally, one would use the Force to commune with the holocron's gatekeeper. In your case, Vader produced a datapad with a connector cable. Crude, but effective. The Emperor had this prepared. He anticipated your needs with remarkable accuracy. Bruce took the datapad, immediately noting its weight distribution and component composition. Imperial technology, definitely monitored. Possibly rigged with tracking subroutines. He connected it to the holocron anyway. Information was worth the risk. The datapad's screen flickered to life with cascading symbols that resolved into readable text, technical specifications, theoretical models, experimental logs spanning centuries. Bruce's trained mind absorbed the information with the speed that had made him the world's greatest detective. Dimensional rifts required massive energy expenditure. Stable portals needed anchor points in both realities. The Force could theoretically punch through the barriers between universes, but doing so risked catastrophic collapse of both sides. Your rift was not natural, Bruce said, pieces assembling into unwelcome conclusions. Palpatine caused it deliberately. He was searching for something. My master seeks knowledge across all dimensions. Your arrival was unexpected, but not unwelcome. Vader moved closer, his presence oppressive in the confined space. "He has tasked me with your training, not in the Force, that remains impossible, but in the Empire's methods. You will learn our combat techniques, our interrogation protocols, our approach to maintaining order through controlled fear. You want to make me an Inquisitor. I want to determine if you are worthy of survival." Vader's hand moved to his lightsaber, not threatening yet, but promising. The Emperor's favor is a dangerous gift. He elevates those he finds useful and discards them the moment they cease to serve his purpose. You have perhaps weeks to prove your value. After that, you become a liability to be eliminated. Bruce met Vader's masked gaze without flinching. "Then train me." What followed were 8 days that redefined Bruce's understanding of physical limits. Vader proved to be a brutal instructor, combining lethal combat techniques with psychological warfare designed to break Bruce's mental discipline. They sparred in chambers where gravity could be adjusted, where the darkness was absolute, where every surface could become a weapon in Vader's Force-enhanced hands. Bruce adapted. His martial arts background gave him foundational forms. But Vader taught him to fight opponents who could predict his movements, who could strike from impossible angles, who wielded weapons that could cut through nearly anything. The training was exhausting, agonizing, and exactly what Bruce needed. Every session revealed new information about Force user weaknesses, reaction times, energy expenditure patterns, psychological dependencies on their mystical power. "You learn quickly," Vader admitted after Bruce successfully evaded a lightsaber strike through pure tactical anticipation rather than precognition. But technique alone is insufficient. You must understand what drives the Sith if you hope to survive among us. They stood in an observation chamber overlooking Coruscant's sprawling cityscape. From this height, the planet looked almost beautiful, its lights twinkling like stars fallen to Earth. But Bruce knew what lay beneath that beauty: oppression, surveillance, fear maintained through systematic brutality. The Jedi preached peace through denial of emotion, Vader continued. They forbade attachment, love, anger, passion, everything that makes beings more than automatons. The Sith embrace what the Jedi feared. Our strength flows from passion, from desire, from the willingness to pursue power without moral constraint. And that's why you serve Palpatine? Because the dark side commands it? Vader's silence stretched long enough that Bruce knew he'd struck something genuine beneath the armor. "I serve my master because the alternative is unacceptable. The galaxy requires order. Democracy failed. The Republic fell to corruption and bureaucratic paralysis. The Empire is harsh, but it is effective. Trillions live in peace because they fear the consequences of chaos." "They live in fear," Bruce corrected. "That's not the same as peace." Spoken like someone who has never governed, you stalked criminals through your city's shadows. But did you ever ask why those criminals existed? Poverty, inequality, systemic failure of institutions that promised justice but delivered only disappointment. Vader turned to face Bruce directly. The Empire eliminates such inconsistencies. Those who obey live well. Those who resist are removed. Simple, effective, honest in a way your democracy never was. Bruce recognized the argument, the authoritarian bargain, trading freedom for security. He'd heard it from Ra's al Ghul, from every villain who believed their vision of order justified any atrocity. The logic was seductive, precisely because it contained a grain of truth. Democracy was messy, inefficient, often unjust. But it was also self-correcting, capable of growth and change. The Empire was static. Frozen in Palpatine's image, it would remain a tyranny until something shattered it from within. "You disagree?" Vader observed. "Good. Blind obedience is for stormtroopers. The Emperor values those who challenge him intellectually, even as they serve him practically. Your training proceeds well, Detective. Tomorrow, we test what you have learned." "How?" "The Inquisitorius has located a Jedi survivor on Braca, a former Padawan who escaped Order 66 and now hides among shipbreakers. You will accompany the third sister to investigate. She will assess whether you are asset or liability." Vader's respirators seemed to quicken slightly. "Do not disappoint me. The Emperor's patience has limits, and those who exceed them rarely die quickly." Bruce returned to his assigned quarters, a cell more than a room, monitored by cameras he'd already located and disabled in ways Imperial technicians wouldn't immediately notice. He'd been given a new suit, black armor similar to his bat suit, but incorporating cortosis weave, a material that could briefly resist lightsaber strikes. He'd also received a weapon, a vibro blade with monomolecular edge, crude compared to his bataharangs, but lethal in ways his old equipment deliberately wasn't. As he examined the blade in the dim light, Bruce confronted the reality of his situation. Tomorrow, he would hunt someone who was likely innocent, someone fleeing genocide, someone who represented the last remnants of an order dedicated to protecting others. He would hunt a hero. And if he failed to capture or kill them, Vader would know he'd been playing both sides. The one rule, the principle that had defined Batman for 2 decades, was about to be tested in a galaxy where mercy might mean his own execution. Bruce Wayne sat in darkness, turning the vibroblade in his hands, and wondered if there was any difference between becoming a monster and pretending to be one convincingly enough to fool actual monsters. By morning, he would have his answer. Braca loomed ahead like a monument to forgotten wars, a planet-sized graveyard where the hulks of Republic warships were dismantled by armies of shipbreakers who never questioned what battles those vessels had fought. The Inquisitor transport descended through toxic clouds, passing skeletal remains of Venator-class star destroyers that had once carried clone troopers and Jedi generals into combat. Now they were just scrap metal, their histories erased, one cutting torch at a time. Bruce stood in the transport's cargo bay, his new armor feeling alien despite its superficial similarity to his batsuit. The third sister, Reva, he'd learned her name was, watched him with barely concealed suspicion. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with eyes that burned with the kind of zealotry that came from converting trauma into purpose. Bruce recognized the pattern. She was what Jason Todd might have become if rage had been his only teacher. "Lord Vader says you're invisible to the Force," Reva said, her tone making it clear she considered this a defect rather than advantage. "That you fight like an assassin but think like a strategist. We'll see. Force sensitivity isn't everything, but it separates hunters from prey." "Who are we hunting?" Bruce kept his voice neutral, already knowing but needing to hear how the Empire framed it. "Rel Kodo, former Jedi Padawan, survived Order 66, been hiding here for 3 years working as a scrapper." Reva pulled up a hologram. A Zabrak male, young, with the distinctive cranial horns of his species and eyes that still held idealism despite years in exile. He's been careful. No lightsaber usage, no obvious Force demonstrations. But intelligence indicates he's been helping other fugitives escape Imperial notice. That ends today. The transport touched down on a landing platform surrounded by mountains of twisted Dura steel. Shipbreakers paused their work to watch the Inquisitors disembark. then quickly returned to their tasks with the practiced indifference of people who'd learned that curiosity attracted dangerous attention. The Scrappers Guild ran Braca with tacit imperial approval. As long as quotas were met and no one asked uncomfortable questions about what happened to the ship's former crews. "He'll sense me coming," Reva said, igniting her lightsaber with casual menace. "Standard protocol. I drive him toward you, you cut off his escape. He'll focus on the Force user and miss the ghost. Simple." Bruce nodded, already analyzing the terrain. Narrow walkways between ship carcasses, vertical shafts descending into darkness, unstable structures that could collapse under stress. For someone with training, this environment offered 100 ways to escape or ambush pursuers. Kodo had chosen his hiding place well. They split up. Reva moved openly through the scrapyard, her presence in the Force like a bleeding wound that any sensitive would detect from kilometers away. Bruce took the shadows, using grappling equipment to ascend into the superstructure of a gutted Republic cruiser. From this vantage point, he spotted their target immediately, a figure moving with too much grace for a common laborer, navigating the dangerous catwalks with preternatural balance. Kodo had sensed Reva. He was running. Bruce tracked him through the maze of metal, noting the Padawan's route choices. Kodo was heading for the lower levels where the Guild maintained habitation modules, civilian cover that would force Reva to exercise caution or risk witnesses. Smart, but it also meant predictable choke points. Bruce dropped 3 levels via a calculated fall, his armor systems absorbing the impact. He landed directly in Kodo's path. The Padawan skidded to a halt, hand instinctively reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. Muscle memory from a life spent carrying a lightsaber he could no longer safely use. Up close, Bruce could see the exhaustion etched into Kodo's features, the hypervigilance of someone who'd spent years knowing that any moment might be his last. "Please," Kodo said, raising his hand slowly. "I'm not a threat. I just want to live quietly." "Then you should have chosen a better hiding place." Bruce drew the vibroblade, its edge humming with lethal intent. Every instinct screamed to find another solution, to disable rather than kill, to uphold the principle that had defined his mission in Gotham. But Reva would be here in seconds, and she would know if he'd pulled his strikes. Kodo's eyes widened as he recognized the impossible. Someone approaching without presence in the Force, a void where consciousness should exist. "What are you?" "Someone running out of options." Bruce struck. The Padawan reacted with trained reflexes, using the Force to shove a piece of debris into Bruce's path. But Bruce had anticipated the move, already pivoting to come at Kodo from a different angle. The vibroblade slashed across the Zabrak's shoulder, drawing blood but missing vital organs by calculated centimeters. Kodo gasped in pain and bolted, using the Force to leap impossible distances between platforms. Bruce pursued, his detective's mind cataloging every detail. Kodo was injured but not incapacitated, frightened but not panicked. Most importantly, he was moving away from the civilian habitation zones, drawing the fight away from innocents. Even running for his life, the Padawan was trying to protect others. Bruce felt something twist in his chest. This was exactly what Batman would do. What Bruce Wayne had done 1,000 times. Prioritize innocent lives, even at cost to himself. Kodo embodied everything Bruce had dedicated his life to defending. And now, he was hunting him. Reva appeared ahead, cutting off Kodo's escape route. Her lightsaber burned crimson in the dim light, illuminating her expression of grim satisfaction. "Nowhere to run, Jedi. You can die with dignity, or we can make this painful." Your choice. Kodo ignited his own lightsaber, green blade flaring to life in defiance of every survival instinct. I am a guardian of peace and justice in the galaxy. I will not surrender to servants of the dark side. Noble words from a dead order. Reva advanced, her Form 7 strikes aggressive and brutal. Kodo defended desperately, his Form 3 technique designed for endurance rather than offense. He was outmatched, operating on 3 years of rust against an Inquisitor who trained daily. Bruce watched from the shadows, his hand tight on the vibro blade. One throw, one precise strike to a vital point, and Kodo would die. Reva would report success. Vader would be satisfied. Bruce would remain useful to the Empire, maintaining his cover long enough to learn what he needed to escape this galaxy. All it cost was the one principle that separated him from the monsters he'd fought his entire life. Kodo stumbled. Reva's blade came down in a killing arc, and Bruce moved. The vibro blade left his hand with perfect accuracy, not at Kodo, but at the structural support beam above Reva's head. The blade struck true, severing durasteel already weakened by years of corrosion. Tons of metal collapsed between the combatants, separating them behind an impenetrable barrier. "What are you doing?" Reva screamed through the debris wall. "He's escaping!" Bruce was already in motion, pursuing Kodo deeper into the ship's corpse. The Padawan ran blindly, injured and exhausted, until Bruce cornered him in what had once been the cruiser's hangar bay. Ships that would never fly again hung from rusted chains, monuments to battles fought and lost. "Why?" Kodo demanded, lightsaber raised but hand trembling from blood loss and fatigue. "Why help me?" "Because killing you accomplishes nothing," Bruce replied, keeping his voice low. "Listen carefully. There's a transport leaving for the Outer Rim in 2 hours, docking Bay 7. The pilot's a smuggler named Drex, who doesn't ask questions if the credits are good. I've already arranged payment." You're helping me escape?" Confusion and hope warred across Kodo's face. "But you're with the Inquisitors. I'm with no one." Bruce pulled a data chip from his utility belt, one he'd acquired through careful theft from Imperial supplies. "This contains coordinates for a rebellion contact on Jagamir. They're building a network for Jedi survivors. You'll be safer with them than alone." Kodo stared at the chip, then at Bruce, trying to reconcile what his senses told him. A void in the Force, an Imperial operative, and yet someone offering salvation. "I don't understand. Who are you?" "Someone who knows what it's like to lose everything and keep fighting anyway." Bruce could hear Reva cutting through the debris barrier with her lightsaber. Maybe 90 seconds before she reached them. "Go, now. And Rel?" Bruce used the Padawan's first name deliberately. "Don't waste the chance. Others will need what you've learned about surviving." Kodo hesitated only a moment longer, then nodded with profound gratitude. "May the Force be with you, whoever you are." "I'm not sure it can be," Bruce replied. "But good luck anyway." The Padawan vanished into the shadows, using the Force to mask his presence and navigate escape routes only a Force sensitive could sense. By the time Reva burst through the barrier, her expression murderous with rage, Kodo was gone. "Where is he?" she demanded, her lightsaber inches from Bruce's throat. "I felt him here. You had him cornered." "He used the Force to collapse the ceiling. I was buried under debris." Bruce gestured at dust that he deliberately scattered across his armor. "By the time I dug myself out, he'd vanished. Force users can do that. Sense structural weaknesses, manipulate their environment. You know this better than I do." Reva's eyes narrowed dangerously. She wanted to accuse him of betrayal. But Bruce's story was plausible, and his Force invisibility meant she couldn't sense deception the way she could with others. The lie existed in a blind spot her training hadn't prepared her for. "Lord Vader will hear about this failure," she finally said, deactivating her lightsaber with barely controlled fury. "I'm sure he will." Bruce kept his tone neutral, already calculating how to spin this disaster to his advantage. "Tell him I learned something valuable. Jedi are more dangerous than Imperial intelligence suggests. They don't just use the Force as a weapon. They use it to read terrain, predict structural failures, create strategic advantages. If we're going to hunt them effectively, we need to account for environmental manipulation in our tactics." Reva paused, her anger momentarily interrupted by tactical consideration. It was a good insight, the kind of observation a skilled operative would make after first-hand experience. It transformed failure into learning opportunity, something the Sith supposedly valued. "I'll include that in my report," she said grudgingly. "But don't think this performance was acceptable. You're supposed to be the Emperor's invisible weapon. So far, you're just another liability." As they returned to the transport, Bruce allowed himself one moment of satisfaction buried deep beneath the cowl's shadows. He'd saved a life today, defied the Empire while maintaining his cover, proved that even in a galaxy ruled by the dark side, it was still possible to choose light. But Vader would know. Maybe not the specifics, but he would sense that something about today's mission didn't align with Bruce's supposed goals. And when that happened, the consequences would be severe. Bruce Wayne had just made himself a target in a galaxy where targets rarely survived long. It was exactly what Batman would do. The summons came at midnight. Coruscant's artificial darkness punctuated by the endless glow of a city that never truly slept. Bruce had been expecting it. Vader's mechanical breathing announced his presence before the door to Bruce's quarters even opened, a sound that had become synonymous with judgment in the 3 weeks since Braca. "Lord Vader," Bruce acknowledged, rising from where he'd been studying Imperial tactical reports. His cowl was off, a calculated vulnerability that suggested trust he absolutely didn't feel. "The Emperor wishes to see you." Vader's tone carried no inflection, but Bruce detected something beneath the mechanical modulation. Anticipation, perhaps, or warning. "Your performance on Braca has been discussed at length." They walked through corridors Bruce now knew intimately. Every security checkpoint cataloged, every guard rotation memorized. He'd spent the past weeks building a mental map of the Imperial Palace's vulnerabilities while simultaneously demonstrating value through intelligence analysis. His outsider perspective had identified patterns in rebel communications that Imperial analysts had missed, applying detective techniques to signals intelligence with devastating effectiveness. But that wouldn't save him if Palpatine had concluded he was more threat than asset. The throne room felt different tonight. Darker, as if the shadows themselves had grown more substantial. Palpatine sat wreathed in darkness, only his yellow eyes visible, burning with an intensity that made Bruce's survival instincts scream. The Emperor had been patient, testing and observing. That patience was apparently exhausted. "Tell me about Braca," Palpatine said without preamble. Bruce had prepared for this interrogation, constructing a narrative that was 80% truth and 20% tactical omission. The target demonstrated superior environmental awareness and force manipulation capabilities. Third Sister's aggressive approach telegraphed our position. The Padawan used structural weaknesses to create barriers and escape routes that conventional pursuit couldn't overcome. And yet, You were alone with him in that hangar bay. Palpatine's voice dropped to a serpentine whisper. Third Sister's report indicates you had opportunity to strike. Why didn't you? He collapsed the ceiling. By the time... Do not insult me with rehearsed lies, Mr. Wayne. The Emperor rose from his throne, and the temperature in the room seemed to plummet. I have spent 70 years perfecting the art of deception. I recognize its signature the way you recognize bloodstain patterns at crime scenes. You let him escape. Bruce's hand moved instinctively toward his utility belt before remembering it had been confiscated again upon entering the palace. He stood exposed before a being who could kill him with a gesture, who could call guards or Vader or simply obliterate him with force lightning. Every tactical calculation ended in the same conclusion. He was completely at Palpatine's mercy. Why? The Emperor circled Bruce like a predator evaluating prey. You understand what I offer. Power, knowledge, a path home. Yet you sabotage your own interests to save one insignificant Jedi. Explain this paradox. Bruce met those burning yellow eyes without flinching. If he was going to die here, he'd do it without surrendering his principles. He wasn't a threat. He was a survivor trying to live quietly. Killing him would have been murder, not justice. Justice. Palpatine tasted the word with visible disgust. There is no justice, only power in those too weak to seek it. The Jedi preached justice and created 10,000 years of stagnation and failure. I offer order through strength, and you repay me with betrayal. The Emperor raised his hand, fingers crackling with gathering electricity. Give me one reason why I shouldn't end your existence right now. Because I'm more valuable alive than dead, Bruce replied with a calm certainty that had faced down dark side. You said it yourself, I'm invisible to Force users. That makes me uniquely capable of operations where conventional Inquisitors would be detected immediately. Kodo escaped because Third Sister's approach was wrong, not because I failed. Give me operational autonomy, and I'll deliver results your Inquisitorius can't match. The lightning continued to build, dancing between Palpatine's fingers like caged serpents eager to strike. Autonomy. You ask for freedom to continue your moral grandstanding while consuming Imperial resources. Why would I tolerate such inefficiency? Because efficiency isn't your only goal. Bruce took a calculated risk, pivoting to offense. You kept me alive after Braca. You could have executed me the moment Third Sister reported failure. But instead, you've been watching, testing, waiting to see what I'd do next. You want to understand how someone can operate in darkness without being consumed by it. That's valuable information for a Sith Lord interested in eternal rule. Silence stretched through the throne room, broken only by Vader's mechanical breathing. Palpatine's expression was unreadable, his hand still raised, lightning still crackling with lethal promise. Bruce had gambled everything on reading the Emperor correctly. That Palpatine's curiosity outweighed his sadism. That the game was more interesting than the kill. Finally, impossibly, Palpatine laughed. The sound was like breaking glass dragged across stone. Magnificent. The Emperor lowered his hand, the lightning dissipating. You stand before absolute power, facing certain death, and respond with psychological analysis and negotiation. Ra's al Ghul trained you better than I realized. Palpatine returned to his throne, settling into it with satisfaction. Very well, Detective. I will grant you operational autonomy. But understand, this is not mercy. This is investment. You will prove your value, or you will provide an entertaining lesson in the consequences of defiance. Either outcome serves my purposes. Bruce forced himself to breathe normally, adrenaline still flooding his system. He'd survived. But the cost was clear. Palpatine now expected tangible results. Failure would mean more than execution. It would mean becoming an example, a cautionary tale whispered among those who considered resisting the Empire. Lord Vader, assign him the Mustafar operation, Palpatine commanded. Let us see how the Batman performs when mercy is not an option. Vader inclined his head. As you wish, my master. As they left the throne room, Bruce finally allowed himself to acknowledge the magnitude of what had just transpired. He'd talked his way out of execution, negotiated autonomy, and potentially secured the freedom to operate outside direct Inquisitor supervision. It was a victory by any measure. So why did it feel like he'd just been handed a poison chalice? Mustafar, Vader explained as they walked, is where the Jedi Order died. Where I killed the last remnants of the temple's inhabitants and became what I am now. It is a world of fire and ash, built atop rivers of lava. And recently, our intelligence suggests a group has established a base there. Smugglers providing sanctuary for Force-sensitive refugees. Civilians, Bruce said flatly. Criminals harboring fugitives. The distinction is irrelevant under Imperial law. Vader stopped, turning to face Bruce with his full imposing presence. You asked for autonomy. The Emperor granted it. Now you must deliver results, and results in this case mean eliminating an entire smuggling operation. No survivors to report our tactics, no witnesses to spread word of our methods. Total operational silence. You want me to massacre them. I want you to prove your loyalty is more than performance art. Vader's respirator quickened. A tell Bruce had learned indicated genuine emotion beneath the machine. Understand something, Detective. The Emperor is not testing you. He is playing with you. He enjoys breaking those who cling to idealism in a galaxy that rewards only pragmatism. He will engineer scenarios that force you to choose between your principles and your survival until one or the other shatters. Is that what happened to you? Bruce asked, risking the personal question. Did he break your principles, or did you break them yourself? Vader was silent for a long moment, the only sound his mechanical breathing echoing through the empty corridor. When he finally spoke, his voice carried weight that transcended the armor's modulation. I was Anakin Skywalker once. The Chosen One, they called me. Destined to bring balance to the Force. I had a wife I loved more than the galaxy itself. And when I saw visions of her death, I did what you would do. Anything, everything to prevent it. The Jedi offered platitudes about accepting fate. My master offered power to defy it. Vader's hand clenched into a fist. I chose power. Burned the Jedi Temple. Murdered those I had sworn to protect. And when the smoke cleared, she was dead anyway. Killed by my own hands through actions I took to save her. Bruce absorbed this confession, filing it alongside everything else he'd learned about Vader. The Sith Lord wasn't just enforcer. He was tragedy personified, a cautionary tale about good intentions corrupted by fear and desperation. Why tell me this? Because the Emperor will offer you the same choice he offered me. Power to achieve your goals, at the cost of everything that makes those goals meaningful. He will show you the dimensional rift technology. He will dangle your world before you like bait. And he will ask only that you compromise, just once, just this one time, for the greater good. Vader's respirator seemed to labor with emotion. By the time you realize the compromises never end, you will have become something you no longer recognize. something that cannot go home even if the path opens. Then why serve him? Because I have nothing left but service. My wife is dead. My child died with her. The Jedi I might have saved are ashes. I am a ghost in a machine, kept alive by hatred and machinery, with no purpose but the Empire. Vader turned away. You still have a choice, Detective. I did not tell you this story as warning. I tell it so you understand what the Emperor does to those he finds interesting. He makes us into mirrors of his own darkness. The question is whether you are strong enough to look in that mirror and see a monster staring back. They reached Bruce's quarters. Vader paused at the threshold. The transport to Mustafar leaves at dawn. I suggest you use the remaining hours to decide who you are and whether that person deserves to survive this galaxy. The Sith Lord walked away, his cape billowing like a shadow given form. Bruce entered his quarters and sat in darkness, turning Vader's words over in his mind. Mustafar, a base full of smugglers and refugees, civilians trying to survive Imperial persecution. And he was expected to kill them all to maintain his cover and prove his loyalty. The one rule: 20 years defending it. 20 years proving that justice could exist without becoming the evil it opposed. 20 years of discipline, training, sacrifice, all leading to this moment in a galaxy far from home, where keeping his principles meant dying, and living meant abandoning everything Batman represented. His cowl sat on the desk before him, empty and accusing. Bruce Wayne picked it up slowly, feeling its weight, remembering every person he'd saved by refusing to cross that line, every criminal who'd reformed because Batman had given them a chance rather than a grave. Every life that existed because Bruce Wayne had said no when others would have said yes. Could he say yes now? Could he become a killer to survive? Or was there a third option? Something Vader's tragedy had blinded him to. Something Palpatine's cynicism couldn't comprehend. Batman had always found the third option. As dawn approached and the transport to Mustafar prepared for departure, Bruce Wayne donned his cowl and made his choice. He would go to Mustafar. He would face the impossible situation the Emperor had engineered. And he would prove that darkness didn't have to win, even in a galaxy built on its power. Even if it killed him, Mustafar burned. Not metaphorically, the entire planet was a hellscape of volcanic activity and rivers of molten rock that turned the atmosphere into a shimmering haze of heat and ash. The transport descended through clouds of toxic vapor toward a facility built on a stable outcropping above a lava flow, its shields the only thing preventing it from melting into the inferno below. Bruce studied the facility through the viewport, his tactical mind automatically cataloging defensible positions and escape routes. The base was small, maybe 20 structures connected by pressurized walkways, built from heat-resistant materials that glowed faintly from proximity to the lava. Sensor readings indicated 47 life signs. 47 people who'd made the mistake of helping Force sensitives escape Imperial persecution. 47 people Palpatine expected him to kill. The operation is simple, the transport pilot said. A clone officer whose designation Bruce hadn't bothered learning. Secure the facility, eliminate all hostiles, extract any useful intelligence, then destroy the base. Standard suppression protocol. Define hostiles, Bruce replied, though he already knew the answer. Everyone present is complicit in harboring fugitives. Imperial law is clear. Aiding enemies of the state carries a death sentence. The pilot said it without emotion, reciting doctrine he'd been programmed to accept. That was the horror of the clone army, warriors engineered to follow orders without the moral friction that made atrocities difficult. The transport touched down on the facility's landing pad. Bruce disembarked alone, another element of his operational autonomy. No inquisitors to supervise, no stormtroopers to execute orders, just Batman, a facility full of civilians, and the Emperor's expectation of massacre. He moved through the facility methodically, his cortosis weave armor rendering him invisible to both visual sensors and force detection. The smugglers had established a sophisticated operation. Forged identification documents, hidden compartments in cargo vessels, a network of safe houses across the outer rim. It was impressive in its organization and desperately inadequate against Imperial resources. Bruce found the first refugees in a converted cargo bay. 3 of them, a human woman and 2 children, barely teenagers. They huddled around a small heating unit, wearing clothes too thin for Mustafar's environment despite the shields. The woman's eyes showed the hollow exhaustion of someone who'd fled too long with too little hope of safety. "Please," she said when she saw Bruce's armored silhouette. "We have nothing valuable. Just let us go." Bruce's hand moved to his vibroblade. 1 strike, 3 quick deaths. Eliminate witnesses, destroy the operation, prove his loyalty. It would be so easy. They were tired, unarmed, completely at his mercy. He could tell himself it was necessary, that his mission to return home justified any cost, that their deaths bought him the time and resources to eventually stop greater evils. Every rationalization Palpatine wanted him to embrace. "Where are the others?" Bruce asked instead, his voice modulated to hide any identifying characteristics. The woman hesitated, maternal instinct warring with survival. "I don't know what you're talking about. The smugglers, the ones running this operation, where are they?" "The main facility, northwest section." She said it quickly, desperately, hoping cooperation might spare her children. "Please, they're just kids. They've never hurt anyone." Bruce moved past them without another word, leaving them alive and terrified. He had maybe 90 minutes before the transport pilot reported delayed completion. 90 minutes to find a solution that didn't involve becoming exactly what Gotham's criminals had always claimed he was, a monster pretending to be a hero. The northwest section housed the operation's leadership. 7 smugglers arguing over holographic displays showing Imperial patrol routes. They were professional criminals, probably with blood on their hands from years of operating in the galaxy's shadows. But they were also risking everything to move refugees, charging minimal fees or none at all, driven by something that transcended profit. "We have a problem," Bruce announced, stepping into the room. The smugglers reacted with trained efficiency. Blasters drawn, formation established, escape routes identified within seconds. Their leader, a scarred Weekay with eyes like chipped stone, assessed Bruce's armor and weapons with the gaze of someone who'd survived by reading threats accurately. "Imperial?" the Weekay asked. "Complicated." Bruce raised his hand slowly, showing he wasn't immediately hostile. "I'm here to eliminate this operation. The Empire knows about this facility, knows about your refugee network, and has decided you're too much of a liability to tolerate. They sent me because I'm invisible to Force users and can't be detected by conventional sensors. I'm a ghost they use for operations too sensitive for stormtroopers. So you're here to kill us?" The Weekay's finger tightened on his blaster's trigger. "Why announce it? Why not just do it?" "Because I'm looking for a third option." Bruce lowered his hands carefully. "You have maybe 80 minutes before my transport pilot reports mission failure and calls for reinforcements. When that happens, this facility gets orbital bombardment and everyone dies. Refugees, smugglers, everyone. But if I can deliver evidence of operational termination without actually killing everyone, we buy time. One of the other smugglers, a Rhodian with translator implants, chittered skeptically. Why would an Imperial operative help us? I'm not Imperial. I'm a prisoner playing a role to survive. Bruce pulled up holographic schematics of the facility on his wrist display. Here's what we do. You evacuate everyone to your emergency transport. I know you have one. Operations like this always maintain exit strategy. I plant evidence of catastrophic failure, falsify casualty reports, then blow the facility after you're clear. The Empire thinks everyone died in an industrial accident, and you relocate to a new base. That's insane, the Wike said. But his eyes showed calculation rather than dismissal. He was considering it. Even if we evacuate, the Empire will investigate. They'll find the bodies don't match their records. Not if the explosion is big enough. Lava planet, volatile materials, shields failing, accidents happen. Bruce met the smuggler's gaze directly. I know this plan is desperate. I know it requires trusting someone who just admitted he was sent to kill you. But it's the only option that doesn't end with children burning to death, because they had the misfortune of being force-sensitive in an empire that murders them for existing. The smugglers exchanged glances, entire conversations happening in looks and subtle gestures. Finally, the Wike nodded slowly. You have 1 hour. After that, we leave with or without your help, and you can explain mission failure to your Imperial masters. What followed was controlled chaos. The smugglers activated their evacuation protocol with the efficiency of people who drilled for exactly this scenario. Refugees were hustled to a concealed hangar where a heavily modified freighter sat fueled and ready. Bruce worked simultaneously, accessing the facility systems to create a convincing narrative of catastrophic failure. He found the facility's fusion reactor and programmed a delayed overload. He accessed communication logs and edited them to suggest internal conflict and sabotage. He planted evidence of Imperial intelligence extraction, data that Palpatine would find valuable enough to justify the operation even without casualties. Most critically, he fabricated thermal signatures that would be interpreted as bodies consumed by the subsequent explosion. Why are you doing this? The woman with the 2 children approached Bruce as he worked. Really? What do you gain? Bruce paused, considering how to explain Batman to someone from a galaxy that had never heard of Gotham City. Where I come from, I made a promise. That I would protect people who couldn't protect themselves. That I would fight evil without becoming it. That there was always another way, even when everyone else had given up looking. He returned to his work. I'm a long way from home, but that promise doesn't care about distance. The Force brought you here, she said with quiet certainty. It works in mysterious ways, connecting things across impossible distances. Maybe you were meant to be here, in this moment, to save us. I don't believe in destiny. Neither did I, until the Empire murdered the Jedi and started hunting children. She placed a hand briefly on his armored shoulder. Thank you, whoever you are. May the Force be with you. The evacuees loaded into the freighter with desperate haste. 47 lives compressed into a ship rated for 30 passengers. The Wike captain gave Bruce a final nod of acknowledgement before sealing the boarding ramp. If you survive this, the smuggler said, and you need extraction from the Empire, send a message to these coordinates. He transmitted data to Bruce's display. We pay our debts. Just get them out of here. The freighter launched on chemical thrusters to avoid the energy signature of repulsor lifts, flying dangerously low over the lava flows before engaging hyperspace at the edge of Mustafar's gravity well. Bruce watched it disappear, then triggered the facility's self-destruct sequence. He had 4 minutes to reach the extraction point. 3 minutes to cross a facility that was already beginning to shake as the reactor overloaded. 2 minutes as emergency bulkheads sealed and lava began breaching the shields. 1 minute as he reached the landing pad where the transport waited, its pilot looking confused by the alerts screaming across every sensor. "What happened?" the pilot demanded as Bruce boarded. "Reactor sabotage. The smugglers knew we were coming and rigged the facility to explode rather than let us capture intelligence." Bruce strapped into his seat as the transport lifted off. "Get us clear of the blast radius, now." The facility detonated with spectacular violence, shields failing catastrophically and allowing millions of tons of lava to consume the base in seconds. The explosion's heat signature was massive. Exactly the kind of event that would incinerate bodies beyond recognition. The pilot's sensors would show thermal readings consistent with casualties, and the falsified data Bruce had planted would confirm the narrative. It was a perfect operation from Palpatine's perspective. As they jumped to hyperspace, Bruce allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. He'd saved 47 lives without compromising his principles. He'd delivered results that would satisfy the Emperor while secretly defying everything the Empire represented. He'd proven that Batman could exist even in a galaxy ruled by the Sith. But as the relief faded, dread took its place. Palpatine was not a fool. Vader had warned him. The Emperor played with those he found interesting, engineering scenarios to break them. This had been too easy. The pieces falling into place too conveniently, which meant either Bruce had been extraordinarily lucky, or Palpatine had anticipated this exact outcome and was allowing it to happen for reasons Bruce didn't yet understand. The game wasn't over. It had barely begun. And somewhere in the Imperial Palace, Bruce was certain Emperor Palpatine was smiling. The hologram of burning Mustafar flickered in the darkness of the Emperor's throne room, casting crimson light across Palpatine's satisfied features. Bruce stood at attention, his report delivered with clinical precision. Smuggler network eliminated, facility destroyed, intelligence recovered regarding rebel safe houses. A textbook success by Imperial metrics. "Exemplary work," Palpatine said, his voice carrying none of the menace from their previous encounter. "Lord Vader, it appears our investment is bearing fruit. The Batman delivers results without requiring Force sensitivity or Inquisitor supervision. Precisely the asset I anticipated." Vader stood motionless beside the throne, his presence somehow more ominous for its silence. Bruce couldn't read the Sith Lord's body language through all that armor. But instinct suggested Vader wasn't convinced. The Dark Lord of the Sith had survived decades through paranoia and tactical insight. He wouldn't accept this operation at face value. "The thermal signatures are consistent with casualties," Vader said carefully. However, the explosion's magnitude exceeded expected parameters, almost as if designed to ensure nothing survived for forensic analysis. Bruce kept his expression neutral behind the cowl. The smugglers had rigged the reactor as a failsafe. They knew we were coming, probably had informants in Imperial intelligence, and chose to deny us prisoners and intelligence rather than face interrogation. "A logical conclusion," Palpatine agreed. Yet Lord Vader raises an interesting point. The destruction was remarkably thorough. Convenient, one might say, for someone who wished to falsify casualty reports. The Emperor's yellow eyes fixed on Bruce with predatory focus. "Tell me, Detective, did anyone escape Mustafar alive?" The question hung in the air like a blade suspended over Bruce's neck. This was the test, not Mustafar itself, but this moment, this interrogation. Palpatine had known or suspected the truth before Bruce had even returned. The entire operation had been designed not to eliminate smugglers, but to see if Bruce would lie to the Emperor's face. Truth or deception, confession or denial. Every option carried lethal consequences. Yes, Bruce said. Vader's hand moved toward his lightsaber. Palace guards materialized from shadows Bruce hadn't realized concealed them, weapons trained on his position. The temperature in the room seemed to drop as Palpatine's expression shifted from satisfaction to something far more dangerous. "Explain," the Emperor commanded. 47 evacuees escaped via concealed freighter before I destroyed the facility. Bruce kept his voice steady, committing fully to the gambit. I falsified the thermal signatures and edited the casualty reports to suggest they died in the explosion. The Empire believes its enemies are eliminated. The smuggler network is disrupted and forced to relocate with significant resource loss. And I've established contact with rebel-adjacent elements who now consider me potentially sympathetic to their cause. Silence. Vader's respirator was the only sound, steady as a countdown timer. Then Palpatine laughed, that same disturbing sound, like breaking glass. Magnificent. You not only defied my explicit orders, but did so in a manner that provides operational advantage. The Emperor leaned forward. Lord Vader, what is your assessment? Treason, Vader replied without hesitation. He deliberately allowed enemies of the Empire to escape. By rights, he should be executed immediately. Perhaps. Or perhaps our detective has demonstrated the very quality that makes him valuable, the ability to operate beyond conventional Imperial doctrine. Palpatine rose from his throne, descending the steps with measured grace. Do you know why I truly kept you alive after Braca, Mr. Wayne? Not because of your tactical skills or force invisibility. Those are useful tools, nothing more. Then why? Because you are incorruptible, and incorruptibility fascinates me. Palpatine circled Bruce slowly, examining him like a specimen. I have spent my life breaking the wills of Force users, bending Jedi and Sith alike to my purposes. Some resist initially, but they all succumb eventually. The Force makes them vulnerable, their passions, their connections, their certainty of cosmic purpose. I can manipulate all of it. The Emperor stopped directly in front of Bruce. But you have no Force connection, no cosmic destiny, just mortal will and stubborn conviction. You cannot be sensed, cannot be influenced, cannot be corrupted by the dark side because it cannot touch you. You are perhaps the only being in this galaxy immune to my primary method of control. That makes you either my greatest asset or my greatest threat. And you want to determine which, Bruce concluded. I want to see how far your principles extend before they shatter against reality. Palpatine gestured, and a new hologram materialized. A star system Bruce didn't recognize, with one planet highlighted in red. Christophsis, a minor world that sided with the Separatists during the Clone Wars and has recently declared support for this nascent rebellion. The population numbers approximately 12 million, most concentrated in urban centers that would be vulnerable to orbital bombardment. Bruce's stomach turned cold. You want me to commit genocide? I want you to make a choice. The Empire cannot tolerate open rebellion. Christophsis must serve as an example. Either through immediate compliance or total destruction. I am sending you with a battle group and full authority to negotiate or exterminate as you see fit. Palpatine's smile was predatory. Save them through diplomacy if you can. Kill them if you cannot. But understand, if Christophsis continues its rebellion after your intervention, I will personally ensure every man, woman, and child on that planet dies screaming. Their blood will be on your hands for your failure to act decisively. That's not a choice. That's a hostage situation with 12 million lives. Welcome to governance, Detective. Every decision carries weight. Every mercy extended to one group means cruelty inflicted upon another. The Jedi pretended otherwise, and their order burned for that delusion. The Emperor returned to his throne. You have one standard week. Christophsis complies or Christophsis dies. And you will be the instrument of whichever outcome manifests. Bruce felt the trap closing around him. If he refused, Palpatine would order the bombardment immediately, and every death would prove the futility of resistance. If he accepted, he became complicit in either forcing a planet into slavery or carrying out its execution. Either way, the Emperor won, proving that principles meant nothing against overwhelming power. I'll need operational resources, Bruce said, buying time to think. Intelligence on Christophsis' leadership, economic vulnerabilities, military capabilities. If you want compliance, I need leverage. Lord Vader will provide everything you require. Palpatine waved dismissively. You have my full confidence, Batman. Do not disappoint me. The alternative would be regrettable. As Bruce left the throne room with Vader, his mind raced through scenarios and contingencies. A week to save or doom 12 million people. A week to find an option that didn't involve becoming either tyrant or executioner. A week to prove that Batman's methods could work on a galactic scale. You should have lied about Mustafar, Vader said once they were alone in the corridor. The Emperor respects strength, not honesty. By confessing, you invited this escalation. If I'd lied and he'd discovered it, I'd be dead. If you fail Christophsis, death would be merciful compared to what he will do. Vader stopped walking, turning to face Bruce directly. Listen carefully. The Emperor has set this trap perfectly. If you negotiate compliance, you prove that terror and overwhelming force can achieve any objective, validating everything the Empire represents. If you order bombardment, you cross your final line and become what you claim to oppose. If you refuse either option, billions die across the galaxy as the rebellion grows bold from Christophsis' example. There's always another option. Is there? Vader's respirator quickened with what might have been frustration or concern. I stood where you stand now, faced impossible choices between Jedi teachings and the ones I loved. Told myself there was a third way, a clever solution that would save everyone. There wasn't. The galaxy doesn't reward cleverness when power is the only language spoken. It rewards results, no matter how they're achieved. You didn't find a third way. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Then find it, Vader challenged. Find the solution I couldn't. Save Christophsis without becoming a monster or condemning them to death. Prove that your principles are more than attractive weakness. Because if you fail, Mr. Wayne, the Emperor will have broken you in ways you don't yet comprehend. And I will have no choice but to execute you as the liability you've become. They reached the archives, where data on Christophsis waited. Vader departed without another word, leaving Bruce alone with holographic displays showing a world balanced on a knife's edge. 12 million lives depending on him finding an answer that might not exist. Batman had faced impossible situations before, fought enemies with godlike power, saved Gotham from apocalypse a dozen times, but always with resources allies, contingency plans built over years of preparation. Here, he had a weak, limited Imperial support and an emperor who wanted him to fail in the most spectacular way possible. Bruce pulled up data on Christophsis, a crystal world economically valuable for its exports, strategically positioned along a major trade route. The population was diverse, the government democratically elected, the military adequate for system defense, but laughably outmatched by Imperial forces. They declared for the rebellion not from strategic calculation, but moral conviction. They believed freedom was worth dying for. Batman would have to convince them it was worth living for instead. As he studied maps and population data, planning an approach that might save millions or doom them, Bruce considered what Vader had said about the Emperor's trap, about strength versus honesty, about the day Anakin Skywalker faced an impossible choice and chose wrong, becoming a monster to save someone he loved and losing everything in the process. The difference, Bruce decided, was that Vader had been alone, isolated by Jedi dogma that forbade attachment, manipulated by a Sith master who exploited his fear. Batman had trained with the League of Shadows and learned that isolation was weakness. Real strength came from connection, trust, building something larger than yourself. Christophsis had declared for the rebellion. That meant they believed in something worth fighting for. If Bruce could find the right leverage, the right message, the right way to turn belief into survival strategy, maybe, just maybe, there was a third way after all. But first, he needed to do something the Empire would never expect. He needed to ask for help. The journey to Christophsis took 3 days aboard an Imperial Star Destroyer, a monument to military might that could reduce the planet to ash within hours. Bruce spent those days in his quarters, studying every piece of intelligence while simultaneously constructing a communications device from scavenged Imperial technology. The parts came from maintenance droids, auxiliary systems, anything he could access without triggering security alerts. On the third night, as the battle group prepared to exit hyperspace, Bruce activated the device. It was crude by Wayne Enterprises standards, but functional. A one-time transmission on frequencies he'd memorized from the Mustafar smuggler's data. He recorded his message carefully, knowing he had one chance to make this work. This message is for any Rebel Alliance operatives monitoring Imperial frequencies. My designation is Batman. I am not Imperial, despite appearances. I am a prisoner operating under duress, and I need your help to save Christophsis. The Emperor has given me 1 week to force the planet into compliance or order its destruction. 12 million lives depend on finding a third option. If you're listening, if you believe in what the rebellion stands for, meet me on Christophsis. Coordinates and recognition codes attached. I know this sounds like a trap. It probably is. But I'm betting everything that you'll take the chance anyway. He transmitted the message as a burst transmission, then destroyed the device. Either the rebellion would respond, or he'd face Christophsis alone. Either way, the Empire would detect the transmission eventually. Bruce had maybe 18 hours before security flagged the anomaly. 18 hours to save a planet or condemn it. The Star Destroyer dropped from hyperspace above Christophsis, and Bruce got his first glimpse of the crystal world. Continents of geometric formations that reflected starlight like shattered diamonds. Cities built into massive crystal caves that glowed with bioluminescent vegetation. It was beautiful in a way that made the threat of its destruction even more obscene. Admiral Throne, the battle group commander, was a career officer with the dead eyes of someone who'd carried out too many atrocities to question orders anymore. Lord Batman, he said with barely concealed resentment at Bruce's authority. "The planet's government has refused all communications since we arrived. Standard protocol suggests a demonstration, orbital strike on a minor settlement to encourage cooperation." "No strikes," Bruce commanded. "I'm going down there. That's tactically inadvisable. The population is hostile, and without force sensitivity, you have no warning of ambush." "Then I'll have to be careful." Bruce checked his equipment: cortosis armor, vibroblade, limited gadgets he'd managed to fabricate from Imperial supplies. Not the full utility belt, but enough to work with. "Maintain orbital position. If I'm captured or killed, do nothing until you receive orders from Emperor Palpatine directly. Understood?" Thrawn's jaw tightened with barely suppressed anger, but he nodded. Bruce had learned that Imperial officers hated autonomy almost as much as they feared failure. He was using both as weapons. The shuttle descent was tense. Christophsis's defense grid tracked him, but didn't fire. They recognized an Imperial shuttle and were calculating whether shooting it down would trigger immediate retaliation. Bruce transmitted on civilian frequencies. "I'm coming alone, unarmed in terms of heavy weapons, requesting parley with planetary leadership. I'm here to find a solution that doesn't end with orbital bombardment." The response came in a woman's voice, steady despite obvious fear. "You're Imperial. Why would we trust you?" "Because I'm the only chance you have. Let me land, hear what I propose, then decide. What do you have to lose?" Silence stretched long enough that Bruce thought they might refuse. Then, landing coordinates transmitted. "Come alone. If this is a trick, you won't leave this planet alive." "Fair enough." The shuttle touched down in Christophsis's capital, a city of crystalline architecture that refracted light into rainbow patterns across every surface. Bruce disembarked to find himself surrounded by militia forces, their weapons antiquated but functional, their expressions desperate. They were farmers, merchants, teachers, civilians forced to become soldiers because the alternative was slavery under Imperial rule. The planetary governor was a Duros woman named Shalara, her red eyes carrying the weight of knowing her decisions would determine millions of lives. They met in what had been the Capitol building's council chamber, now converted to a military command center with holographic displays showing Imperial fleet positions. "You have one chance to convince me this isn't a trap," Shalara said without preamble. "Speak." Bruce removed his cowl, a gesture of vulnerability that made the guards tense. But Shalara's expression shifted slightly. Let her see his face, his humanity. Let her understand he wasn't just an Imperial weapon. "My name is Bruce Wayne. I'm from another universe, pulled here by accident. The Empire captured me, and Emperor Palpatine has been testing me, forcing me into situations designed to break my principles. Christophsis is his latest test. I'm supposed to threaten you into submission or order your extermination. He expects me to become a monster or watch millions die for my refusal. And you expect us to believe you're different from every other Imperial operative?" One of Shalara's advisors, a human male with scars suggesting combat experience, shook his head. "Why should we trust a word you say?" "Because I transmitted a message to the rebellion asking for help. Because I let 47 refugees escape Mustafar rather than kill them. Because I'm standing here in a room full of people who want me dead, without my shuttle, without backup, betting everything that you'll see I'm trying to save you, not destroy you." Shalara studied him with the intensity of someone accustomed to reading lies. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Say I believe you. What's your plan? The Empire has overwhelming force. We can't win a military confrontation. You don't have to. We changed the game entirely. Bruce activated his portable holoprojector, displaying maps he'd prepared during the journey. Palpatine wants a binary outcome, compliance or destruction. Both outcomes serve his purposes. But there's a third option: evacuation. The room erupted in protest. Shalara raised a hand for silence. Evacuate 12 million people. Impossible. We don't have the ships, the resources, or the time. Not all at once. Strategic relocation over several months, disguised as normal trade and refugee movement. The rebellion has safe houses, sympathetic systems, smuggler networks. We funnel your population out in small groups while maintaining the appearance of compliance. By the time the Empire realizes what's happening, Christophsis is an empty shell, strategically worthless and not worth the resources to hold. The Emperor would see through that immediately. The scarred advisor objected. Not if we're very careful. Not if we have rebel coordination. Not if... Bruce paused as his communicator chirped. Coded signal, using the recognition sequence he'd transmitted. They'd come. Not if we have help, Bruce finished. The door to the command center opened. 3 figures entered, and Bruce immediately cataloged details. Twi'lek female, human male, both in spy, judging by species characteristics. They wore civilian clothes, but moved with military precision. Rebellion operatives. The Twi'lek's expression was wary but curious. Your transmission reached us. Command debated whether it was authentic or an elaborate Imperial trap. We decided it was worth the risk. Her eyes fixed on Bruce. I'm Hera Syndulla. Explain why the Empire's new enforcer is suddenly interested in saving rebels. Because I'm not their enforcer. I'm their prisoner. And I need your help to turn this death sentence into an evacuation operation. Bruce pulled up more detailed plans. Christophsis has strategic value because of its location and crystal exports. We fake compliance while secretly moving the population through rebel channels. It requires coordination, resources, and perfect operational security. Can you do it? Hera exchanged glances with her companions. Maybe. But why should we trust you? For all we know, this is a trap to expose our networks. Then don't trust me. Trust this. Bruce transmitted the Mustafar data. Coordinates of the refugees he'd saved, confirmation codes proving they'd escaped Imperial operations. I've already committed treason by letting them live. I've already chosen which side I'm on, even if I'm trapped behind enemy lines. Shalara's expression softened slightly. You really did save them. I tried to. Same as I'm trying to save you. Bruce turned to address everyone in the room. I know the odds are terrible. I know this plan could fail in 100 ways. But it's the only option that doesn't involve either slavery or death. Give me the weak Palpatine allowed. Let me coordinate with the rebellion, and maybe, just maybe, we can prove that hope is more powerful than fear. Silence filled the chamber as everyone calculated risks and possibilities. Finally, Hera nodded slowly. Command will need to approve this, but I'll recommend we try, on one condition. Name it. When this is over, whether it succeeds or fails, you stop pretending to serve the Empire. You commit fully to the rebellion, or you get out of the galaxy entirely. No more playing both sides. No more tests. You're either with us or against us. Bruce met her gaze steadily. If we pull this off, the Empire will know I betrayed them. There won't be any going back. Then let's make sure we pull it off. Hera extended her hand. Welcome to the rebellion, Batman. Bruce shook her hand, feeling the weight of the moment. 20 years as a vigilante operating in gray areas between law and justice. Now he was choosing a side in a galactic civil war, committing to rebellion against an empire that could crush him with casual ease. It was exactly what Batman would do. The next 6 days were a blur of coordination and desperate improvisation. Rebel transports arrived disguised as trade vessels. Population centers were quietly organized into evacuation groups. Bruce fed false compliance reports to Admiral Throne, manufacturing evidence of Christophsis's cooperation while secretly overseeing the largest covert evacuation in rebellion history. They moved 200,000 in the first 72 hours. Not enough, not nearly enough, but a start. Hera's network proved incredibly sophisticated. Safe houses across a dozen systems, forged documentation, bribed officials, and sympathetic smugglers risking everything to move refugees. But on the 6th day, everything went wrong. Admiral Throne's security detected anomalies in shipping patterns. He confronted Bruce in the Star Destroyer's command center, his expression murderous. "You've been deceiving us. Running evacuation operations under the guise of compliance negotiations. The Emperor will hear of this treachery." "The Emperor already knows." Vader's voice resonated through the chamber. The Dark Lord materialized from shadows. Bruce hadn't realized concealed him. His presence crushing hope like atmosphere, venting into space. "Did you truly believe your crude deception would fool Sith Lords, Detective? We have monitored every communication, tracked every transport, cataloged every act of betrayal." Bruce's hand moved toward his vibroblade, knowing it was futile. "Then why let it continue?" "Because the Emperor wished to see how far you would go, how completely you would commit to your doomed principles." Vader ignited his lightsaber, crimson blade humming with deadly promise. "You have failed his final test. Now you face the consequences." The comm system crackled to life with Palpatine's voice, transmitted across every Imperial frequency. "Admiral Throne, commence orbital bombardment of Christophsis. Reduce every city to ash. Let the galaxy witness the price of defying the Empire." "No!" Bruce lunged toward the command console, but Vader's force grip caught him mid-movement, crushing him against a bulkhead with invisible pressure. "Watch," Vader commanded. "Watch the fruits of your mercy." Through the viewport, turbo-laser batteries began tracking toward the crystal world below. 12 million lives, about to become a demonstration of Imperial power. Everything Bruce had fought for, everyone he'd tried to save, about to burn because he'd dared to believe hope could defeat fear. And Bruce Wayne, prisoner in an alien galaxy, could do nothing but watch his principles fail catastrophically against the reality of overwhelming evil. The turbo lasers charged, their gathering energy visible as emerald light building toward release. Bruce struggled against Vader's force grip, his ribs creaking under the pressure, his vision tunneling as oxygen deprivation set in. Below, Christophsis gleamed like a jewel about to be shattered, 12 million lives in their final seconds. Then the impossible happened. Every system on the Star Destroyer died simultaneously. Lights, gravity, weapons, life support, everything. Emergency power failed to activate. Backup generators refused to engage. The massive warship became a lifeless tomb drifting in space. And through the sudden darkness, Bruce heard Vader's respirators stutter and fail. The force grip released. Bruce dropped to the deck in the artificial gravity's absence, floating in 0G as chaos erupted around him. Imperial officers shouted panicked orders into dead communicators. Stormtroopers fired blasters at nothing, their shots illuminating a command center in disarray. And through the viewport, ships appeared. Not Imperial vessels, not rebel frigates. Something else entirely. sleek craft with design aesthetics that made Bruce's heart skip. Angular, aggressive, technologically sophisticated in ways that seemed almost familiar. They moved through space with precision that suggested advanced AI or extraordinary piloting, weapon systems that weren't turbo lasers or ion cannons, but something fundamentally different. What? Admiral Thrawn's voice choked off as one of the mysterious ships transmitted on all frequencies. Imperial forces, this is the Wave Rider. You will power down all weapons and retreat from Christophsis immediately. This planet is under our protection. The voice was human, male, with an accent Bruce recognized because he'd heard it 1,000 times in the Justice League Watchtower. American, modern American English, from Earth, from his Earth. Impossible, Bruce whispered. The mysterious ships, 7 of them he counted, maintained perfect formation around the Star Destroyer. One of them fired, not at the warship, but at empty space, and reality tore open. The same crimson energy Bruce had seen when he'd been pulled through into this galaxy, except controlled, deliberate, weaponized, a dimensional rift, stable and impossibly precise. Batman, the voice transmitted again, directly on Bruce's stolen communicator frequency. We tracked the dimensional distortion that brought you here. Took us 3 weeks to develop the technology to follow. Hold position. We're extracting you and the refugees simultaneously. 3 weeks. Bruce had been in this galaxy for nearly a month, and somehow, impossibly, someone from home had found a way through. But who? How? The Justice League didn't have dimensional travel technology. Wayne Enterprises had barely begun theoretical research. Unless... Ray Palmer, Bruce said into his communicator. The Wave Rider, your legends. Actually, this is Jefferson Pierce, Black Lightning. We borrowed the Wave Rider from the legends after they helped us crack the dimensional equations. Now stop asking questions and start trusting. Because we've got about 2 minutes before that Sith Lord figures out his suit has emergency power. True to Pierce's warning, lights flickered back to life across the Star Destroyer as Vader's armor rebooted from auxiliary systems. The Dark Lord rose, his lightsaber igniting once more, his presence in the Force radiating absolute fury. You will not escape, Vader promised, advancing on Bruce with murderous intent. Bruce grabbed a deceased officer's blaster, firing not at Vader, but at the viewport. Transparasteel shattered, and explosive decompression ripped through the command center. Personnel not secured to the deck were sucked into space, Bruce among them, his armor's emergency seals activating to prevent immediate death in vacuum. He tumbled through space, debris and bodies surrounding him in a grotesque cloud, watching the Star Destroyer recede. This was insane. This was suicide. He had maybe 90 seconds of air in his suit's reserves before a ship intercepted him, its hull opening to reveal a pressurized cargo bay. Robotic arms extended, catching Bruce and pulling him inside with mechanical precision. The bay sealed, atmosphere flooded back, and Bruce collapsed on the deck, gasping as his ears popped from pressure equalization. "Welcome aboard," a woman's voice said. Bruce looked up to see Dr. Lynn Stewart, Pierce's partner, Thunder's mother, standing in full bioelectric suit. "Sorry about the rough extraction. We're still learning how this universe's physics work." The refugees already being evacuated. The Legends deployed portal technology across Christophsis. "We're pulling people directly from the surface to safe houses in your home dimension. It's chaotic, terrifying for them, but better than orbital bombardment." Lynn helped Bruce to his feet. The Waiver Rider's temporal technology combined with dimensional rift stabilization, it's unprecedented. We can move millions in minutes instead of months. Through the ship's viewports, Bruce saw it happening. Portals opening across Christophsis' cities, rebel operatives guiding terrified civilians through rifts in reality to a universe beyond Imperial reach. The crystal world was being emptied in real time. 12 million lives flowing through dimensional tiers into safety. The Empire will follow, Bruce said. Once they understand the technology. They can't. Jefferson Pierce entered the cargo bay, his expression grim. The dimensional barriers are specific to energy signatures. Your cowl contained enough unique markers from your universe that we could lock onto it. But nothing from this galaxy can make the reverse journey without matching quantum signatures. The Empire is trapped here. You're not. Bruce should have felt relief. Escape was literally at hand. Board the Waiver Rider, return to his Earth, resume his life as Batman in Gotham, where the rules made sense and Force users didn't exist. But something held him back. "Vader," he said, "we have to stop him." "Are you insane?" Lynn's expression showed genuine concern. "You've been tortured, manipulated, forced to compromise everything you believe in. You deserve to go home." "I do, but not yet." Bruce accessed the ship's sensors, tracking Vader's position. The Dark Lord had seized a TIE fighter and was pursuing them, his mastery of the Force allowing him to pilot with inhuman precision. "He's hunting me. He won't stop until I'm dead, or he is. And if he reaches the dimensional rift while it's open, he might find a way to follow refugees through. I can't let him threaten my Earth." "Then what do you propose?" Pierce asked. "I finish what I started." Bruce checked his equipment, one vibroblade, cortosis armor, and the tactical knowledge of a man who'd faced gods. "Drop me on that planetoid." He indicated a barren moon in Christophsis' orbit. "I'll draw Vader there. You evacuate the last refugees and seal the dimensional rifts. I'll handle the Sith Lord." "That's suicide." "It's necessary." Bruce met Pierce's gaze steadily. "I've spent a month learning how Force users fight. Their strengths, weaknesses, psychological dependencies. I know Vader's patterns, his tells, his trauma. I can beat him." "Can you, though?" Lynn asked quietly. "Or do you just need to prove that Batman can survive anything, even in a galaxy designed to break you?" Bruce paused, confronting the question honestly. Was this tactical necessity or stubborn pride? The need to defeat the Empire's champion, to prove that human will could overcome mystical power? Or was it simpler? The recognition that Vader was another victim of Palpatine's manipulation. Someone who'd made terrible choices, but might still deserve a chance at redemption. "It's what Batman would do," Bruce said finally. "Draw the monster away from innocence. Face it alone. Win or die trying." Pierce and Lynn exchanged glances, entire conversations happening in looks and subtle gestures that reminded Bruce of his partnership with Alfred. Finally, Pierce nodded. "We'll give you 30 minutes. That's how long it takes to evacuate the remaining civilians and seal the rifts. After that, whether Vader's defeated or not, we're pulling you out. Agreed?" "Agreed." The ship descended toward the barren moon, a lifeless rock of iron and stone, no atmosphere, no cover, perfect for a confrontation where the only variables were skill and will. Bruce disembarked, his armor's life support engaging automatically, and watched the rescue ships continue their work above. Vader's TIE fighter screamed through space, spiraling toward the moon with predatory focus. The Dark Lord had sensed Bruce's presence, or more accurately, sensed the void where Bruce's presence should have been. and was coming to end the threat permanently. The TIE fighter crashed deliberately into the moon's surface 30 meters from Bruce's position, Vader using the Force to shield himself from impact. The Sith Lord emerged from the wreckage without apparent injury, his cape settling around him like living darkness, his lightsaber igniting with that distinctive snap hiss. "You should have run," Vader's mechanized voice echoed across the barren landscape. "Escaped to your Earth and forgotten this galaxy. Instead, you choose to die here, alone, for people who will never know your sacrifice. Why?" "Because it matters," Bruce replied, drawing his Vubro blade. "Because every life matters. Because the moment I stop believing, that is the moment I become you. A weapon serving evil disguised as order. I am inevitable. The Empire is inevitable. You are a moral anachronism, clinging to principles that guarantee nothing but suffering." Vader advanced, each step measured and purposeful. "I offered you training. The Emperor offered you power. We showed you the truth, that the galaxy respects only strength. And you responded with stubborn defiance and doomed heroism. You are everything the Jedi were. Noble, compassionate, and utterly obsolete. The Jedi fell because they became rigid and disconnected. I'm not Jedi, I'm Batman." Bruce attacked. Not the direct assault Vader expected, but a tactical feint, throwing the vibroblade at the Sith Lord's helmet while diving beneath his lightsaber swing. Vader blocked the blade casually with the Force, but the distraction cost him a fraction of a second. Bruce rolled behind him, deploying his last explosive charge directly at Vader's life support systems. The detonation was precise. Not enough to kill, but sufficient to damage. Vader's respirator stuttered, his breathing becoming labored. The Sith Lord spun with murderous intent, but Bruce was already moving, using the moon's low gravity to leap impossible distances, forcing Vader to pursue. "You cannot win," Vader gasped, his voice distorted by damaged systems. "I am sustained by the dark side itself. Your gadgets mean nothing." "Then why are you breathing harder?" Bruce taunted, leading Vader across treacherous terrain, unstable rock formations, and steep crevasses that would challenge even Force-enhanced movement. "The dark side might keep you alive, but that suit is what keeps you functional. Damage it enough, and you're just Anakin Skywalker again. Broken, afraid, desperate." Vader roared and unleashed a wave of Force power that shattered stone and sent Bruce tumbling across the moon's surface. The Dark Lord closed the distance with preternatural speed, lightsaber descending in a killing blow. Bruce caught the blade with his cortosis weave gauntlets. The lightsaber shorted out on contact with cortosis, its energy field disrupted by the rare material specifically designed to resist lightsabers. For a single moment, Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, the Emperor's enforcer, the galaxy's most feared warrior, stood weaponless before an opponent he couldn't sense, couldn't predict, couldn't intimidate. Bruce struck Vader's helmet with calculated force, cracking the viewport. Atmosphere hissed from the damaged seal. Vader staggered back, using the Force to reignite his lightsaber. But his movements were slower now, compromised by damage and lack of oxygen. "You were right about one thing," Bruce said, circling carefully. "I can't win through strength alone, but I don't have to. I just have to survive long enough for you to lose." Vader's respirator failed completely. The Dark Lord collapsed to one knee, his armor struggling to compensate for catastrophic damage. He raised his hand, calling his lightsaber back through the Force, preparing one final attack despite his body's failure. Bruce could have killed him. Could have used the vibroblade Pierce had left him. Could have struck while Vader was vulnerable. could have eliminated the Empire's greatest weapon permanently. Instead, he transmitted coordinates. Emergency medical beacon, sending to Imperial fleet. They'll retrieve you before your suit fails completely. Why? Vader gasped, confusion evident even through mechanical distortion. I would have killed you. Will kill you if we meet again. I know. But you were someone else once. Someone who wanted to save people, who loved passionately enough that it destroyed him. Maybe that person is dead. Maybe Anakin Skywalker is truly gone. Bruce turned away. But if there's even a chance he's still in there, then killing you would make me no better than Palpatine. And I refuse to let this galaxy turn me into a monster. Above, the Waver Rider descended, its dimensional rift technology activating. Reality tore open, showing glimpses of Bruce's Earth beyond. Gotham's skyline, the Watchtower, home. The detective who becomes a legend. Vader said quietly. The rebellion will sing songs of you. The Empire will hunt you forever if you return. But you showed me something I had forgotten. That mercy can be strength, not weakness. That choosing compassion in the face of darkness is courage, not foolishness. Then remember it, Bruce replied. And when you see your master, tell him Batman doesn't break, no matter what universe he's in, no matter what impossible choices he faces. He finds the third option, every time. Bruce ascended into the Waver Rider as Imperial rescue shuttles converged on Vader's position. The last thing he saw before the dimensional rift sealed was the Dark Lord of the Sith, kneeling on a barren moon, watching him escape with something that might have been respect or regret. The Waver Rider jumped dimensions, and the Star Wars galaxy vanished behind a closing barrier of reality. Bruce Wayne, the Batman, the Dark Knight, the world's greatest detective, was going home. But he was leaving behind something unprecedented. 12 million refugees saved, a rebellion inspired, and a Sith Lord who'd been shown that the light could still shine even in the galaxy's darkest corners. Whether that changed anything, only the Force would know. The Waver Rider materialized in Earth's orbit 3 weeks after Bruce Wayne had vanished from the Batcave. From space, Gotham looked exactly as he'd left it, a city of shadows and flickering lights, beautiful in its corruption, home in all its broken glory. Bruce stood in the observation deck, still wearing his modified armor, feeling the weight of a month spent in a galaxy far, far away, settling into his bones like old scars. The Justice League has been searching for you, Jefferson Pierce said, appearing beside him. Superman tore through half a dozen dimensions. Wonder Woman consulted every magical source she knew. They thought you were dead. I was close a few times, Bruce admitted. How are the refugees? Adjusting. 12 million people suddenly appearing on Earth caused complications. But the League is coordinating with governments worldwide. Temporary settlements, refugee integration programs, cultural adaptation assistance. Pierce's expression grew thoughtful. You saved them, Bruce. Defied an empire, outsmarted a Sith Lord, proved that Batman's principles work even in universes built on different rules. Bruce wasn't so sure. He'd compromised, lied, played roles that had required him to become things he'd sworn never to be. He'd worn the Empire's armor, trained in their methods, stood before their emperor and negotiated with the embodiment of evil. The question wasn't whether he'd survived. It was whether Batman had survived with him, or if something fundamental had broken during those trials. The dimensional rift is sealed? Bruce asked. Permanently. The energy signatures are too specific to replicate without technology from both universes. Palpatine can't reach us. But Pierce hesitated, The rebellion knows about you now. About Earth. There are discussions about potential alliance, sharing technology, maybe even finding ways to help them against the Empire. No. Bruce's voice was firm. We don't interfere. That galaxy has to find its own path to freedom. Outside intervention would only complicate their struggle, give the Empire justification for greater atrocities. The rebellion has hope now, examples that resistance works. That's enough. Pierce nodded slowly, accepting the wisdom even if he didn't entirely agree. What about you? Alfred's been worried sick. The League is waiting. Gotham's crime rate spiked without Batman on patrol. You going to be okay? Bruce considered the question honestly. Was he okay? He'd faced Sith Lords and survived. He'd resisted the dark side's corruption despite having no Force connection to anchor him. He'd saved millions and returned home with his principles intact. By any objective measure, he'd won. But victory felt hollow when he remembered Vader's words about principles guaranteeing nothing but suffering. When he thought about Kodo, Christophsis, all the systems still suffering under Imperial tyranny that he couldn't save because his obligation was to his own world. Batman had always struggled with the limitations of what one person could accomplish. In the Star Wars galaxy, those limitations had become cosmically, devastatingly clear. I'll manage, Bruce said finally. I always do. The Waverider descended toward Gotham, its stealth systems hiding it from conventional sensors. They landed in an abandoned warehouse district Bruce recognized, territory controlled by the Falcone family, close enough to Crime Alley that the symbolism felt appropriate. He was returning to where he'd begun, to the mission that had defined his life. Alfred was waiting, of course. The butler's expression cycled through relief, anger, and profound gratitude in the seconds it took Bruce to disembark. Master Wayne, when you vanished, I feared. I'm home, Alfred. Bruce removed the cowl, letting his oldest friend see the exhaustion and trauma written across his features. It was complicated. I can see that, sir. Alfred's trained gaze cataloged injuries, stress markers, psychological damage. You'll tell me everything? Eventually. Bruce looked toward Gotham's skyline, the city spreading before him like a familiar nightmare. Right now, I need to remember why this matters. Why one city, one mission, one vigilante's crusade is worth dedicating a life to when there are entire galaxies suffering. Because, Master Wayne, we can only save what's within our reach. And for you, that reach happens to extend to the most stubborn, corrupt, magnificent city in the world. Alfred placed a hand on Bruce's shoulder. Welcome home, sir. Batman returned to Gotham that night, cape spread against familiar skyline, grappling between buildings he knew by heart. Criminals scattered at his approach, their fear as reliable as ever. The city's rhythm was unchanged, sirens, gunshots, the eternal dance between order and chaos. But Bruce Wayne was changed. He'd learned that darkness existed on scales he'd never imagined. That evil could be systematic, bureaucratic, wielding overwhelming power backed by galactic infrastructure. He'd seen what happened when tyrants ruled without meaningful opposition, when fear was institutionalized, when the good gave up hope. He'd also learned that principles mattered even more in those circumstances. That one person's refusal to compromise could inspire millions. That mercy, compassion, and stubborn idealism were revolutionary acts in systems designed to crush them. Somewhere in a galaxy far, far away, a rebellion fought against impossible odds. Vader carried the memory of a detective who'd shown him mercy when execution would have been justified. Palpatine's carefully constructed tests had failed to break the Batman's will. and 12 million refugees lived because one vigilante had refused to accept that some people were acceptable losses. The Force might bind all things in that distant galaxy. But in Gotham, in this world, on this rooftop overlooking a city that would never truly be saved, Bruce Wayne understood his own truth. Willpower was its own kind of cosmic force, and Batman would never stop proving that light could shine even in darkness, no matter what universe tried to extinguish it. The Cowl's communication system crackled. "Batman, this is Oracle. We've got a situation at Gotham Harbor. Multiple hostages, armed suspects, requesting your assistance." Bruce Wayne smiled grimly, activated his grapple gun, and leapt into the night. Some things never changed. Some missions never ended. And Batman wouldn't have it any other way.